Hey guys, it's Ninja from HQ, and I just wanted to give you a quick rundown today about my Barbarian, my HoTA Barbarian. Now, I'll have a look here. So, we start with my abilities. Now, I have started with Bash, 2 points into Bash, 1 point into Enhanced Bash, and then 1 point into Combat Bash. Then we go down, and I've maxed out as much as I can of Hammer of the Ancients, then into Enhanced, and then into Furious. I have taken 3 points into Endless Fury to generate as much Fury as possible, and I am using a two-handed weapon, a two-handed mace, to help with Hammer of the Ancients. We go down, and I've taken 1 point into Rallying Cry, then into Enhanced, and then through to Tactical. I've also just recently started using Challenging Shout with 1 point into Enhanced and then 1 into Strategic, which also gives me 30% Thorns on my maximum life. I have found that it does help, especially when you're surrounded by a mob. Any extra damage is a good thing. I've got 1 point in Warcry, and then 1 in Enhanced, and then 1 to Power Warcry. I've taken 3 points into Booming Voice to help my shout durations. I've got 3 points into Guttural Yell, which causes a 12% less damage from the enemies. We go over to Swiftness, and it increases I've only got 2 points in it at the moment, but it increases my movement speed by 8%. I've used other gear to help increase my movement speed, so yeah, my movement speed is rather up there. I've got 1 point here in Aggressive Resistance because I do berserking, so I do get a little bit of damage reduction while I am berserking. I've got 3 points into Prolific Fury. While berserking, Fury generation is increased. I've got 3 points down here in my weapon mastery skills, which will give me 9% increased to damage to close enemies and gain 6% distant damage reduction. I've got 3 points into No Mercy, where I have 9% increased critical strike chance against immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies. Then I move down here to Thick Skin, and then I move over to Counter Offensive. Moving on to my ultimate skill, I've taken Wrath of the Berserker. In a pinch, it is a great thing to use, and it increases your damage severely. To the right here, I've got 3 points into Heavy Handed, 3 points into Wallop, and 3 points into Brute Force. Now, with my current build, I can't actually get any more points into Wallop, but any ranks plus into Wallop does help a lot, especially if you're using a bludgeoning weapon. For my next one down here, like most people, I've taken Unbridled Rage just for that extra damage. Now, I can go through, and for my Paragon board, as you can see, I've got the main starting board here. I'm not going to gloss over everything, but I'm going to give you a quick look at what I'm using. And this glyph is Crusher, which I've got all the way. Then we move through to the next board, and you can see where I've gone, so I'll give you time to look if you wanted to copy this board. Marshall is my next glyph, and I've got that all the way as well. And then we go through here taking things as damage with a two-handed bludgeoning weapon, and that's what I'm using. And I've gone through here all the way up to Bonebreaker to guarantee overpowers. As we come through, now this is the third board that we're going into here, and again taking certain things as in maximum fury, maximum life, attack speed, damage while fortified, because with this build I'm always fortified, Warbringer, and then I've come up through here and I'm using Dominate. Again, taking physical damage nodes wherever you can possibly get them, and maximum fury nodes wherever you can possibly get them, stacking strength mostly as well. Moving on, this is where I've got the Tears of Blood glyph, and I've only got that to level 3 at the moment, although it does do rather a lot, as you can see, and it's what's basically the life of this build at the moment, putting my strength up severely, as you can see. Now with my gear, as you can see here, I'm not using Godslayers. I'm using a legendary helm because I was able to find total armor and damage while berserking. The life regen, yeah, it works, but not so much because everything dies pretty much before you need to use your life regen. And I'm going to go through and show you all the aspects that I have. So then on my chest, I've got my basic skills, grant damage reduction. Almost got that to max, but again, damage, total armor, a bit of resistance, and damage reduction itself. Then I go to my gloves, and again, all stats I've got on there. I don't like to rely on all stats, but it is something that everybody does use. And then I've got strength, damage to injured, and then 3 ranks into Hammer of the Ancients. Would have been great if it could have been 4, but it is what it is. Now I've got here, each point of fury you generate while at maximum fury grants your next core skill 2% increased damage, up to 30%, which is definitely something that we do love. Going down to my pants, and again you can see all stats, strength, total armor, and then control impaired duration reduction. It does help with higher level dungeons, and this is disobedience, as all good builds need, and I'm lucky enough to have that as a max. I am using 100,000 steps for the movement speed. I am not using walking arsenal or the ground stomp that comes with it. I have not been able to find a better pair of boots, and I was using ground stomp previously, so I just not have had to change these yet, and plus the 3 maximum evade charges are great. I've got this Ancestral Force mace. A Hammer of the Ancients quakes outwards and its damage is increased by 30%. It is great. It's the best one that I've found. I haven't found anything better. Again, massive boost to strength here, massive boost to overpower damage, as you can see there, 157.5%, and then another 189%, so it is fantastic. I got a really good roll with core skill damage on this one, and then another a good roll for damage to close enemies. So that is one of my better weapons. Now I am lucky enough to have found Doombringer in this build. So I've started using Doombringer, and it is actually fantastic. It is one of the ones that I've searched for pretty much the entire time while playing Season 2 of Diablo, and I must say it is really good. That percentage to damage is fantastic, and the core skill damage is fantastic. Moving on, I've found this is just another one-handed sword that I found, but it does really help out. Again, strength, overpower, basic skill, the usual stuff that we're finding. And again, another imprinted aspect there, attacking enemies with basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill. Therefore, using my basic attack, I use my Hammer of the Ancients, and it's overpowered pretty much all the time. Then also, lucky enough for me, I was able to get the Grandfather, and the Grandfather speaks volumes for itself. I don't really need to go through it, but having that 108 to all stats, plus the 84% damage, and the extra maximum life, and plus this ignores durability loss. So it is absolutely one of the best. If you're lucky enough to have it, then you know what I'm talking about. Up to my amulet, and I'm using Banished Lord's Talisman purely for the overpower, and having that 120% increased damage on there really does help. I've got the Ring of Red Furor, which is the Barbarian legendary ring, or ancestral unique I should say, and it does help again with critical strikes, overpower, and everything else. The other ring that I have here, critical strike damage, overpower damage, physical damage, it's all damage base. And then you gain 6 fury per second while berserking. Again, using Wrath of the Berserker, I am berserking a lot. So that's my gear, and that's my build. Now, I am able to, or I have done, one shot for Duriel, and I can pretty much one shot anybody, any major boss in this season at the moment. Now I want to make it clear that this is not an Abattoir of Zir runner. I have tried to do Abattoir of Zir, and I don't know if it's got anything to do with the build, but I am unable to pass even the first level of Abattoir of Zir. I am able to get close with a group, but on my own I'm not able to do it with this build. It is a fun build, and it does do a lot of damage. It's a one-hit build, and it is a lot of fun to play, especially in a big group. I'm just going to travel over to Blackwater here and give you a little bit of a rundown of well, not a little bit of a rundown, more of a gameplay show, just to show you what this little guy can do. Now, it doesn't have any fury generation, which I've tried to do fury generation, but with my vampiric powers, which I'm going to go to in a minute, I do generate fury rather quickly, and as you can see, I can shout, and then my shouts do damage, and they kill people, but I am able to do one-shots to pretty much everything that exists on the field. Now this is just out in the world, as you know, and I am running through doing 44s. You can see all the tens of millions that I'm doing here. But the problem is that it does run out of fury a little bit quickly. But once you get on a roll and you start getting to mobs and mobs and mobs, you can see that it is rather fun. Apart from your serious one-shots, I don't seem to have a problem with anybody or anything. And once you get your rotation down, so my rotation usually is to use the 2 shouts, which I have down there on L2 and R2, and then I'll activate the other shout that I have, which is, there we go, and then I'll use my ultimate all the time, using my basic skill and Hammer of the Ancients in there as well, getting the big crits. So yeah, basically that's the rundown of the build. I'm just going to finish off here and move away from this. So I'll just show you a little bit more of gameplay, as you can see through here. Now we're going to go back to a town just quickly for a moment, and then I'm going to run through my vampiric powers. So the vampiric powers that I'm using here, I am using Undying, I am using Sanguine Brace, I am using Resilience, I am using Blood Boil, which does really help in a group when those volatile blood drops drop, and then you go over and get them. Having that bit of extra damage is pretty fantastic. And I'm using Hemomancy, which is another great skill to use, especially because it does add a little bit of an element of range towards the build. And yeah, so that's the build. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments, and I have been Ninja for DPS HQ. Thank you all for watching.